Kybalion, a conversation by Julie Benetti and Susan Barbaro, is a production of EI Publishing in association with EI Alliance, copyright 2018. Visit eipublishing.com for more. Music for this series is courtesy of New Threads, copyright 2018, from their self-titled album, available now.
Okay, so this is Susan Barbaro.
And Julie Benetti.
And we are continuing our discussion on the Kybalion. We're having, going through the various principles, and we are now on the Hermetic Axioms. And we're discussing them with the book. And of course, we're going where no one else has ever ventured to go. We're going a little bit beyond.
Right, because at this point, we'd like to say that we have a number of different audio segments that you can listen to that deal with the other principles discussed in the Kybalion by three initiates. And this is the very last one, which, sometimes everyone wants to go to the back of the book and say, what's the solution? What's the answer? What's the answer? Yet this really builds upon all we've been talking about in this cool synchronous way that takes all the Hermetic principles that Hermes Trismegistus described in this book and shared with us. And there's a definite energy and vibration to them, and we're just ready right now to propel. So we hope you're ready to propel with us.
Well, we're going regardless. So the first thing that, is very important, and this is going to sum up what Julie was trying to say, is that if you haven't done the work of the first few, then you're going to look at this and you're going to say, oh God, it's just another, I'm not going to say it, just another one of those poo-poo books about New Age stuff that's been written over and over ad nauseum. We're tired of it. I don't know if you're tired of it, but you should be, because no one's getting anywhere with it. So we decided we're going to take what's out there, going to the core and adding to it. So if
and this is a part of what we do, because if you go to eipublishing.com, you will see that we write about energy, we work in energy, we're energy workers. Energy is all around us, we're aware of it, and we look at the principles and we look at what things occur and don't occur, and we try not to get paralyzed by analysis. Yet this book was really cool, the Kybalion by Three Initiates, and we wanted to sit down and discuss it and share it, because it's very energized. It is an energized conversation. I know you laugh when I say that. Yet, who doesn't want to have an energized conversation?
So where I'm going is I'm going to bite, you're going to get bitten in your behind if you don't. The first axiom is the law of use is universal, and he who violates it suffers by reason of his conflict with natural forces. Which basically says we've done all this work, we've studied, we've expressed what we believe an intention behind them, how to work with them. And if we don't use them, we just sit here and talk about it and then go off and do nothing, well, it's useless. And I mention that because if you don't go back to the old stuff, the previous recordings that we have, then don't waste your time. And at the end of the day, if you don't do it and you don't practice it, then you're not helping yourself and you're not helping anyone else.
And the clarity of that is that you have knowledge. And so you can't say you don't, because you do. Whatever you think, whatever you don't think, whatever you're trying to convince yourself of, you have knowledge. And if you don't have manifestation and expression of it and you don't act upon it, then what are you doing?
Right.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, now you have to put it explicit.
And it's so funny because in here they, in this book, they say, kind of Hermes Trismegistus says it's like hoarding precious metals, and if you're hoarding something, you're not doing anything with it. You think there's some sensation or vibration to it, maybe consciously or unconsciously. It says again in here that, it's like a vain and foolish king. Knowledge is like wealth, and it's intended to be used. So
and shared, and shared. Holding this knowledge for yourself is, guess what? It doesn't work. It really doesn't work, because then you can't practice it, and you have to practice it quietly or in hiding. And, maybe back in the Dark Ages, that's how a lot of things had to be practiced. Yet that's not how it is today. And that's why Julie and I go through these things. A lot of people want to, are interested in what we're doing and what we're talking about. And our goal is to share it. We're not trying to, to do this. So,
and that's funny because, it comes down to the simplest statement of, intuition. You have some intuition, you have some gut vibes, you get something and you don't use it. Well, hello, that's knowledge.
Right.
And if you're not using it, why aren't you? And if you're going to, Joe beside you or Schmo beside you or whoever beside you and saying, what do you think? Well, hello, why aren't you asking yourself, what do you think?
So that's the first axiom. The second axiom, are we good to move on?
Go ahead.
You did a good job. Thank you, Julie. To change your mood or mental state, change your vibration.
And I want to kind of do a little excerpt here because Susan and I were talking this morning and I was saying, if I'm in that situation where, kind of I've been not attacked, but a lot of crap has come my way and I'm trying to change my vibration, I'm trying to get into a better sentimentality, I'm trying to get into a better vibration, a better mood. I mean, the funny thing is I turn around and I turn to music, I read something, I read some Napoleon Hill, or I even turn on some Michael Jackson. Why not? And if you go to the clear creativity of Michael Jackson, that's where I go. I don't go to what the stories are, what his life was, how sad that he died young, that I was a huge super fan. I don't go to any of that. What I go to is the energized vibration of creativity that he entered into when he sings his songs and when he just shares his art with us through his songs, through his singing, and I go past that into the vibration of that raw creativity, and it changes how I feel, it changes my mood.
So in the Kybalion it says cultivate the art of attention by means of the will. So the story of what you're saying, Julie, is it's a conscious effort you have to make to say, I need to change my mood. And we're calling it mood, okay? You could say vibration. You need to make the conscious effort, say that I'm going to change it. And you gave us a great example of what you do. Everyone has their own way of doing it. And the truth is that it takes a little bit of will to decide I'm going to change my viewpoint, my perspective. I'm going to do it. And it's so easy sometimes to say, yeah, but let me tell you, so-and-so did this and I'm so mad. And it's actually is familiar. So of course we go to what's familiar and it's easier to complain or whine or, so it takes, that's why I love it. It's the art, cultivate the art of attention, which is figuring out what works for you by means of the will. And that make the decision. And once you decide that, it's once again, it becomes a choice, and then you change maybe your habit, the way that where you go when you feel a certain way.
And it's an element of self-care too.
Yeah.
Because you have to stay in that self-care to use the knowledge you have, to expand it, and then to move with it and change your vibration and change your mood. And a lot of times things can really oversaturate what your experience is. And you worry about friends, family, everything, all that stuff that occurs. There's a lot of drama going on. Yet by cultivating that art of attention and realizing you need to grasp onto that self-care by means of the will, you can move into another vibration.
So I'd like to go to the next axiom because this one I think is so powerful. Quote, to destroy an undesirable rate of mental vibration, put into operation the principle of polarity and concentrate upon the opposite pole to that which you desire to suppress. Kill out the undesirable by changing its polarity. And the part about this is that if you're trying to chase out fear, if you have a fear, people seem to think, all right, I'm going to face that fear, I'm going to conquer that fear. Whereas what this says is you put the positive, you put it on courage. You don't focus on the fear, you focus on courage. And I have courage. I've done this in the past. I know I'm supported. I know I can do this. And by doing that, your brain can't concentrate on two things two opposites at the same time. So it's more powerful. Instead of it's Mother Teresa saying, you know, if I think it was Cheryl, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but when she said, you know, we're going to have an anti-war protest, and she's like, I'm not going to have an anti-war protest. I will have a peace, protest, not a protest, but peace demonstration, because the focus. Anti-war is still focusing on war.
Right.
If you go to peace and you focus on peace, that you can't do both. So this to me is in many ways the answer to so many people. If it says if you have a dark room and you're in darkness, the best thing to do is just open the shades and allow the light in. And then that defeats the darkness. This to me is one of the most powerful. It is the answer to the mental. How do you do it? Well, if you don't know how, this is a wonderful first step.
And the beautiful word to focus on, I know we've been saying focus, but cultivate. What a beautiful word. Because cultivate, kind of at least it takes me into, fields and what you want to grow and what you want to enhance and what you want to, those are all wonderful, positive.
And I laugh because you go there and I go right to the, what do I have to say? If I'm upset about something, I have to say, I'm supported, I'm loved, I'm taken care of, I can work through anything. And so what you're saying is, you're actually the next step away. Once I can be okay, then I can start thinking, what do I want to cultivate? But for me, when I'm at the banals of whatever it is, it's like, okay, I'm like,
well, I agree with you, because when you're in anger and when you're in, even in fear, like you say, you get, okay, let me cultivate the opposite. What's the opposite? Courage. You can't even get to that. And so, it's funny when you say that, because it made me think of energetic invocations. It made me think of invocations. That book is full of just powerful invocations to set you into a different energy. Yeah. So what's going to set you into a different energy? Cultivate that. And when you cultivate, I just get this visual of, you're plowing the fields and you're cultivating and you're growing, you're planting the seeds to grow something else. And look, when you're focusing on that, look how far away you get from the other opposite pole.
Yep. Can we go to the next one? Beautiful. That's beautiful, beautiful visual too. Thank you. Okay, quote, mind as well as metals and elements may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. It's once again polarization. It's the polarity, and how you want to change that. Is there anything you need to add?
Well, it's what we were saying before, but also it's so cool because sometimes even if you don't think you understand the principle, one of the principles says you don't think you know, but you do know, so you still understand it in some way. I know I just admitted a paradox there, but in a way, sure, go ahead, put yourself in that loop, and you still kind of sort of understand it, even if you can't. A lot of times I don't vocalize stuff, but I understand it, and maybe there aren't words that are attached to it, yet in that you're transmuting, you're moving from degree to degree, and you can't have any doubt in that, no matter what is expressed.
And the important thing I think to add to that is, when you say it, Julie, I hear it and I think like, oh yeah, right, I can get to that space, but yet I'm very clear it takes practice. It's something that you have to decide. It's like anything. If you decide you're going to go back to school and become a brain surgeon, you have to be clear in your mind that this is what I'm going to do. You can't walk in that, pardon my French, half-assed. You got to go in there saying, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to study. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to do it. And this is no different. It's easy to say, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then next week, I think I'll just sit and put on, Love Boat and watch everybody else have a great life. You have to sit down and be dedicated to doing it. And it's like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
And yet the really cool thing about this axiom is that, if you're stuck in whatever it is you're stuck in with your mind, this tells you, sorry, but it's a law. It can be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, vibration to vibration. So
if you have access to one, you have access to its opposite. The next axiom is rhythm may be neutralized by an application of the art of polarization. Go ahead.
And that's such a fun one because, it's like you said, it's that great example you gave, which, folks, you got to go back and listen. Because when we're in there in polarization, you gave that great example. It's like you found the point. You found the point that was the rest point that you could go to and you could stop the movement. And I mean, so, it's funny because I don't know if, sometimes you can have motion sickness. Sometimes I have motion sickness. And yet, I'm not saying that's a disease I have or anything, but, sometimes that occurs and you're sitting on the couch and someone's sitting there and they're shaking their leg and shaking their leg and shaking their leg. And you're like, hello, I can feel this. This is motion sickness. And so what's your resting point? Sometimes you just slap your hand down on their knee and go, okay. And they stop. And you found the point. So you found the point, and that's a real simple example, yet you found the point, and guess what? You're not motion sickness. You don't have any motion sickness anymore. And the person can start to shake their leg again, yet you already found the point.
So to that, now that we've talked about, in the previous podcast about the mental gender, about the brain, the I and the me. I mean, in one of the things that it talks about in terms of the planes, and this goes into cause and effect as well as the rhythm, is that there's the male brain and then there's the female brain. The female brain acts upon whatever is given to it to a degree. And so you can work in the female brain and go in with the rhythm, or you can go to the male brain and say, okay, this is what I know, and this is where I'm going to be, and I'm going to ride it out. And you go to your higher brain, and that's what I'm going to call it, your unconscious.
Brain, mind, conscious, unconscious. Yeah.
You're going to go into that space, and that's where you say, okay, I'm not riding this out. I'm going to sit up here. I'm going to watch it ride out in front of me, because you're not going to stop it, but you're not going to participate. You're going to take a higher level, and again, it's a bird's eye view.
And that's really poignant because you're refusing to continue with the rhythm. You found that rest point and you can stay there, and still the rhythm can go on because it will go on.
It's going to.
That's the law. It's going to. Yet it doesn't have to affect you.
So the next, we could, and you can go into any of these prior podcasts, so we go into it more deeply, but this next one is nothing escapes the principle of cause and effect. But there are many planes of causation, and one may use the laws of the higher to overcome the laws of the lower, which is what we just said. And it's understanding. That's why all these principles build upon one another, because you get to that other space, and then you understand what all this is about.
And you're ideally, you're becoming your own master of your own moods and feelings, and understanding what you can do with these principles to interact with these moods and feelings, yet interact by the laws, because the laws are there, and that's what is going to occur no matter what.
And so, when you look at life, and everyone looks at their own life and they say what's going on, it's always nice to be able to say, well, wait a second. This is happening, but to what degree do I need to participate, and to what degree can I change? And again, we're going to go into cause and effect. We talked about, the rolling of the dice. Each one is dictate, what's going to happen is dictated what's happened prior, what's going to happen afterwards, but each individual role as well. You have the ability in your mind through going to a higher level as to how much you participate, and that individual situation, you bring in your own mentalism piece of it as to how you're going to proceed. And at the end of the day, when and we've all had these moments, and I had a period in my life where things were so crazy and things worked out okay. And in my mind, if I know at the end of the day everything will work out for me, then I can ride the waves a little bit easier.
And that's a very important point. And sometimes that's a hard place to go. If, it's funny because the book goes into, you can be a player or you can be a pawn. And it's not the traditional sense or the definition of a player. It's really, are you actively participating in your life? Are you using these principles for self-care? It's not to manipulate anyone or manipulate situations or become a grand poobah or anything. It's not for any of that.
Except if you're Fred Flintstone.
Right. It's not for any of that. Yet it's kind of, being an active player in life, but also understanding the concepts and the principles that guide it.
So there's the last two. I like to state them together. And there's one before, but that doesn't really.
Big long one. Yeah.
So these, but I think it just talks about if you could understand the laws, then you're not a blind slave, is what it says here. You're a skilled swimmer. It's exactly what you just said. So you just so these last two I think are important.
And so it's funny because if you can understand the laws, and why couldn't you understand the laws? Because the laws are here because you're here, so you're a part of where the laws are. So there's no reason why you can't understand the laws. And it might be like I have a double forked tongue here as I say that, because I can send myself into a loop. Yet sometimes, in that loop of understanding what you really don't understand. I mean, I was kind of teasing you a little bit. I was saying before, this one I'm not sure. You go first because I'm not sure I quite understand it. And then I go first, and then you go into this great synopsis of the whole concept, of the whole principle, and I'm sitting here going, wow, that was a great synopsis. And I just can, share one or two lines.
Yeah, because...
But before you said, I'm not sure I get it. So, yet, there you go, the known and the unknown. And that's so powerful. So what are you telling yourself that you don't know that you really know?
So what I'm going to say is these last two axioms, quote, true hermetic transmutation is a mental art, quote, and the last one is, quote, and this is the last line, the all is mind, the universe is mental, period, end quote. And what I think is so important, is that we've heard this before. You hear this all the time. Everything's mental, the law of attraction, all these other things, they say it. And you know what? Why hasn't it worked? Why is it you hear that and people tell you that and then you beat yourself up because you can't figure out how to get it to work? Well, guess what? This and these 7 principles are how you turn your mental capacity around to embrace the more. This is the how. This is not same stuff regurgitated.
Right.
These 7 principles answer, how do I do that? And that's why this and these 7 principles are so important. And you expand upon them. There's so much more to read in between these principles. Yet if you can grasp it, then you move on to something more. And nowhere else, well, with the except of the book we put together, Energetic Invocations, which talks about really clearing old beliefs. But that works with beliefs. This book works with how to change your mind.
And how to thus influence your environment, your life, how you're living, what you're doing, everything. And it's funny because one of the, if you see in my book, I've kind of put a little star next to this. As they say in the end, if the universe is mental, then mind must be the highest power affecting its phenomena. If this be understood, then all the so-called miracles and wonder workings are seen plainly for what they are.
So eat that.
It's wonderfully digestible.
And make it something that you do. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please.
We've had fun, and we actually decided in doing this that we're probably going to look at Lao Tzu's
and a few other ones,
the Tao of the Way, and a few other things that are interesting materials to us that we want to discuss and we'll share.
Yes, and if there's something that you want to hear about, send us a line, join us at
feedback.
eipublishing.com, because we're going to continue to do this. And thank you.
Thank you. This has been a production of EI Publishing in association with EI Alliance. Listen to other episodes and visit eipublishing.com for the transcript of this series as an ebook and to find more energized podcasts and books. Find New Threads self-titled album New Threads on iTunes, Spotify, Bandcamp, or at newthreads.us. Thank you for listening.